Ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to another CryptoManiacs podcast. Pretty excited today because someone else gets their first badge. Like this is an event, right? When we get new guests, definitely no stranger to Hive, but a new badge means people are actually tuning in now. Task, we
We
have an
need a
audience.
bell or something that we can ring when we get a new guest or something. But yeah, I'm very excited because when you look at the levels of Hive, if you will, you got blockchain, then you have, of course, your layer two, and we have a lot of guests who are involved with the applications and the Leo Finance guys and Speak and CTT and all different things. Brian of London, all these wonderful apps that are being created. But I think the only representative we've had, and we've had him a few times, who talks about the base layer was block trades.
Broad
And
trades,
today
right?
we have somebody else who is very instrumental in putting together the code that we all enjoy. And they've been busy the last few months, really gearing up and putting the finishing touches on this hard fork. So we'd like to welcome Hou to the Maniac Show.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Happy to be here.
Welcome. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Task, because that's actually what I said last night in my show. Like, there's schmucks like me, right, who just kind of show up and do funny things on camera and dance. Then you have your developers, but then you have your core developers. And this is what I was telling my audience yesterday was like, this guy is the dude. Like, I mean, there's like block trades, how, and that's it. Like these are the guys that the what, like you said, the code that we use, the code that we enjoy every day. These are the guys that are responsible for it. So welcome, man. Good to have you. And I look forward to this. I'll be brutally honest with you. A lot of this will be like, oh, for me, I won't know what's going on. I'm just gonna nod and agree for the next hour. So I'm just here for entertainment purposes only. So there you
Yeah,
go.
we could spend an hour talking about Python and JavaScript and watch how many shades of bored John turns.
Oh, I'll be fascinated. I just want to understand it all. Anyways. So yeah, welcome, man. Welcome. So I maybe just started off a little bit of your background, how you got into this crazy blockchain stuff and stumbled across, Hive, well, the previous blockchain, which shall remain nameless. Yeah, kind of your history and even how you got into the Steam Press stuff eventually, and then into EXXP and stuff.
Well, the good news about that is a few months ago, I wrote a very long post which outlines everything that I did and how I went into this. So if you're listening to this and you want like every details of it, dig into my history. But long story short, so I'm a computer scientist, started coding around like 14, stumbled into Bitcoin around like 2016, but never really got into it. So I was more like investing, but I was a student, so I had no money, so I'm not rich. But yeah, long story short, yeah, I then stumbled onto Ethereum and everything, but never got really into it. Eventually, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I went onto Steam, mostly because I find it interesting the way it can be censorship resistance and everything, but I wasn't interested in coding on it really. So I spent like a few months of like writing articles until I found out that writing was not for me. Because like, when you write articles and then getting traction initially is very hard, and I was like, it's not for me to write so many articles and spend so much time like rereading myself for almost no traction. And I didn't have because I didn't enjoy writing that much. Eventually, I was in Paris at the time, and I met Frederica, another esteemed member. And together we started like brainstorming some ideas, and I was like, actually, I know how to code, and we could definitely do something. And then I started digging into the nitty-gritty. Basically, the main idea was like, I know I'm not a great writer, but there are a ton of great writers out here reading blog posts for virtually nothing. And also, there is a lot of value for them where they pay to basically back up their posts here and there. And I was like, literally, you could post on Steam now have your post basically stored forever, and also like people like Brian London who have some controversial posts, big quotes.
I love the butt of your quotes. It's perfect.
And these are the kind of people where you can run into a situation where suddenly you like a letter gets sent to your hosting provider and they shut down your blog, and then all of your writing, if you're lucky and you saved it, that's good. If not, everything lost. And the worst thing about it is, well, you also lose all of the engagement that you got over the years. So you lose your comments and everything, and that's the worst part, because even if you saved all of your articles, then you lose you lose the heart of your blog. And so that's kind of what we thought to do initially, and eventually it evolves into something where, as a blog owner, you can really reward your audience. And so if your audience comes to you, and usually a lot of people like engage with you, and you can actually upvote the good post, and that creates a lot of like a vertical circle, because usually you come onto a post and you comment and nothing happens, and now you can get like a few cents, and so you're incentivized to come back to that post next time to read that same person over and over again, which is a way to improve retention for your audience. So that happened for about 2 years. Then the whole I wasn't too interested into the protocol development and everything, because that was quite complicated. And also, I mean, to their credit, the Steam team was pretty hands-on with it, and they managed it pretty well. And it was very complicated, still is, to be fair, but also because most of the knowledge was hidden away in the head of the Steam developers. And so if you want to get onto that world, you have to either be block trades, meaning that you were here from the beginning, and so you contributed to creating the chain, so you have that knowledge. But from an outsider perspective, it's super hard. And it's not the Steam developer's job to help you do things. And so when you ask questions, sometimes it would take you like 2 weeks to a month to get an answer. And so you're like, I'm blocked, so I cannot do anything else. And a month goes by. And it's always kind of awkward, because you have to be like, do you read my message? I'm still having this issue. And so even today, it's super hard to get into core development, because it's very niche. So there is no help on the internet whatsoever. And very few people know the answers to what you seek, and so it's very, very hard to get into it. But eventually, the fork happened and everything, and so I was like, the blockchain needs people who can actually do this, and like time was of the essence. So anything I could do to contribute, I did, and so eventually I leveled up and gained some more knowledge about the whole thing, and eventually I graduated to being paid by the chain and contributing on a very regular basis on a bunch of features, most of which are already live, and some very new exciting stuff coming out on the next half. But yeah, long story short, that's kind of my high story.
I think that's awesome. You came here as a guy and took a chance on writing, and found out that wasn't your thing. And 4 years later, much of it due to the hard fork and the split away from Steam, you are now not only are you a core developer, you're a core developer paid out of the DAO. Is that correct? That you have a proposal and you're funded. So basically, this is like your job, and that is the great thing about Hive, about this cooperative. There's a lot of roles that need to be filled. People just need to step up. And I'm sure you probably could use more core developers, because there's probably still a lot of stuff that's on the back burner that y'all would like to do. It's just we don't have enough people to drop code to get it into these hard forks.
Yeah. One of the main things that I'm actually currently speaking with someone to hire another full-time developer on through the same grant that I have. I don't know if I should say grant or proposal, because technically it's kind of a grant, but it goes as it over time and not all at once like a grant. But yeah, I because the main thing that's very tricky is testing, because it takes a lot of time to test. But it doesn't require that much knowledge to do it. But that also takes a lot of time. And since all of the code that you do on a blockchain has to be very, very solid, because there is literally hundreds of millions at stake, you don't want to make any mistake. So yeah, there is definitely a lot of stuff that could be done, especially on the HiveMind/communities side, which is what I'm focusing on right now. And also, it's what's kind of tricky about it is like there is a bunch of stuff that we want to do, but at the same time, there is a bunch of stuff that would be nice, but we won't do because either it causes too much stress on the blockchain, or it would be too risky to implement. One thing, for instance, where we are kind of going back and forth on it would be instant burn downs or like lowering the burn down rates. The risk with that is that it affects a lot of other systems. Like, let's say today I allow you to instant power down, then you have to take into account that your voting power may change instantly, your RC may change instantly. What happens with all of the witnesses you vote on, etc. Yeah, and so we're always like kind of very conservative on features because we want to make sure that we don't break anything. Like what happened when like hard fork 20 happened and like RC, which was a very big change on everything, and no one could transact for a week. That's something we never want to do again. And yeah, basically the Steam team was not very they worked a lot and they did a lot of things, but very often, I think for the past like 3 hard forks, there was at least one problem that needed like an urgent hard fork right after. Hotfix is what I was looking for. Whereas on the Hive team, we take arguably way more time to ship our hard forks. Like right now we try to do 2 per year, but right now I think we're at like 1 per year, I think, since the last one.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
Although to be fair, this one is quite big. We are building a lot of improvements. RC delegation is coming up, finally. But yeah,
you wrote that code, right?
Yeah. I wrote it like 3 times already, actually. I wrote like 1 iteration, then that got thrown away. Then I wrote another iteration, which after a lot of discussion with block trades, we decided it was too risky, which just goes back to what I was saying. And then finally, I built the final implementation, which is going to be live soon. But yeah, my whole point is like, we try to, in like the rabbit and the tortoise thing, we try to be the tortoise all the time to be as safe as we can because we take our responsibility, which is like safeguarding your money very, very seriously.
I'd just like to say that what you mentioned was like, and I'm not trying to throw dirt at anyone, but the previous blockchain, every time there'd be a hard fork, things just went like bananas for like sometimes there was weeks where you couldn't do anything, and there was that time where we lost all of our resource credits and it had to like build back for like a week. Ever since Hive, just like you said, you guys take your time with it. I mean, there's literally like the running joke was like, oh, a hard fork's coming, don't plan it, just go out and smell the flowers for a couple of days. But since Hive has been here and you guys have been developing on this, like hard forks are like seamless now.
Well, you've only had one, John.
What's that, sorry?
You've only had one.
You know what I mean. I mean, you know what I mean. I mean, it's just like back then it was just like you knew that you couldn't plan anything for a week. Like
I think this sums it up. With Steam hard forks, you would sit there and flip a coin. We're approaching another hard fork. I don't think John or I are nervous at all about anything going wrong. We trust that you guys got it covered.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal. Also, to be fair to the other chain guys, I think they had like 3 or 4 core developers. Because at one point the company was like 100 people, and then there was a huge downturn in like the 2018, the past bear market, and so and at that time they had to cut like 80% of the staff. And realistically, at one when right before the whole hard fork and the birth of Hive happened, there were literally 3 people working on it. Whereas right now, if you count, I think in Blocktrade's team, I don't want to say anything wrong, but I can count at least like 10 people working on the core stuff, which obviously allows you to do a lot more. And on top of it, the management at the other chain was not great because there was always like shifting priorities where they would spend like 2 months working on SMTs. And then like actually we won't ship it now, so you have to switch back and forth, and so to be fair to them, it's like it's not that they were incompetent, it's that they were the situation was not helping.
It was management issues, let's say.
Yeah, management, budget, and budgeting, I'd say, yeah.
Give me an N, give me an E, give me a D. Anyway, what I want to expanding upon what you said there, because I've asked this to almost every developer who's come on, and many have very little knowledge about it. Some have a great deal of knowledge. You obviously have intimate knowledge with this, and we've had Block Trades on who kind of, it's his idea, I guess. But based upon what you said there, how you're very careful with the blockchain code, you're going to take your time. You guys do a lot of testing, make sure it's right. You know, if we can't say, okay, we're going to go with 100% certainty, we'll delay it a month, 2 months. We're just not ready. Hey, that's just the way it is. With that mindset, how important is half? And what do you see from your perspective as a core developer, half providing to the Hive ecosystem as compared to what's here today?
So the great news about half is that we don't have to be as careful about half than we have to be about the blockchain. Because half lives on top of, long story short, half is something that listens to the block. And so it's not part of the blockchain, it's something that listens to it and does something with it. I mean, no, we still have to be careful about half because we are going to build some very big stuff on it. I say we, but technically it's mostly Block Trades. I haven't taken part in this project yet. I may do some stuff on it, but it's, right now my focus is on HiveMind. Although we are moving HiveMind onto half, so anyways, lots of topics. But yeah, long story short, the importance of half it's basically the next step for the Hive block. It's like if you look at Ethereum, the way it cannot scale and how it's difficult to do a bunch of stuff, and how layer 2s have helped unlock a lot of that potential, half would do that and more, in the sense that with half, we're going to be able to build a smart contract ecosystem, which means tokens, SMTs, and all of the like, which may mean some stuff where there has been a lot of talk about removing the social layer from the core blockchain and moving it onto a second layer. That could be done once we have half finished up, which, to be fair, there is already working prototypes. It's just not like production ready, but it's very close. Although don't quote me on that, because depending on how it's going with Block Trade, stuff can change. But yeah, half has to be perfect because it's going to be the base layer for most of the new app we expect on Hive. Because without getting into it too technically, the problem with blockchain development is that it requires you to have a bit of blockchain knowledge, whereas with half, it's going to be very Web 2, where basically you take the blockchain, you put the blockchain on, you tell the blockchain, okay, I want to listen to these posts, these votes, and maybe these custom JSONs. Put all of that into a database that's going to be continuously synced up to the blockchain. And then I'm going to build my app on it. And that's something that any normal developer, normal as in non-blockchain, is very, very used to. And so that means we can open up to a whole world of other developers who can build whatever they want, while still being while still maintaining the decentralization, because the source of the data is coming from the blockchain. And so they could build a DApp that listens to all of that and then be like, these are the rules that I use to sync up my Hive server. So if you want to build a new node, you can just use the same rules and deploy the same app. So that's going to be very exciting as soon as ships. And yeah, I should say that half is not linked to half of 26. I mean, I think it's kind of linked because there may be some stuff that's needed for half of 26, but it's not because half of 26 ships that half ships and vice versa. So it's really two different products, I will say.
Yeah, and what Block Trades explained to us when he was on, he said the first thing is it opens up the world to developers, because you don't need these people who have blockchain knowledge, C++, whatever the language is. He basically said if they can utilize and integrate into databases, which every developer can, then they can use half. But the other thing he said, which is very interesting, you mentioned Ethereum. And one of the drawbacks to the EVMs is smart contracts are, I guess, for the most part, in Solidity. And Solidity is a rather newer language. It's a language people aren't familiar with. And Block Trades was making the case that a lot of these hacks could be simply due to a lack of familiarity on the people writing the Solidity contracts. And he said the great thing about Half is they can code in whatever they're used to. So if you're used to writing, I don't know, Python, just to pick one out that I know, they can just write in Python. So the chance of these contracts having mistakes in them is reduced because you now have developers dealing in languages they've been dealing with for a decade.
Yeah, definitely. And also, it's not a new language. It's not something where the main issue with Solidity is that most of the issues that there is due to the complexity of it being a new language, which can be very complicated to and also everything has to be very optimized because it has to fit on the EVM. And so the issue with it is that then you have to kind of do a bunch of hacks here and there if you want to like lower the gas fee and everything. And usually attackers have a very, very deep knowledge of something, and so you're not really on the same playing field. If you're new to the ecosystem and you want to deploy a smart contract, you may make mistakes because you're very new to it. Whereas I, as a developer, if I wanted to deploy something on Half, I would be very, very aware of all of the security flaws that I may bring. So yeah, that's definitely going to help a lot in terms of smart contract implementations. But also, yeah, main thing would be accessibility more than security, I'd say.
When you look at Hive, based upon your work at the core level, and really when you think about Hive, even with the social at the base layer, it still is a very what I'll call, I don't know if this is proper term, but it's a very tight blockchain. There's only about like 9 or 10 functions that operate at the base level. We upvote, we post, we do governance issues, we do some of this, we move stuff from wallet A to wallet B. And of course, you mentioned Ethereum there and EVM, which has all this different stuff going on in smart contracts and all that tied in. Now, when you take what our blockchain base code looks like, you add in Half, how do you rank based upon your knowledge of what else is out there from a coder standpoint? How do you rank Hive compared to these EVMs and compared to Cardano and EOS and Trons and EVM? Some of these other blockchains that are getting a lot more attention than we are.
It's very different because Hive is right now not because it's like there is two main types of blockchains. There is like general purpose blockchains, so that's the EOS, that's the Ethereum, etc., where the blockchain is meant to be a base layer where you can build anything on it. Whereas Hive is very specific, kind of like Bitcoin, where the use case is send money, and you can do stuff on top of it using some scripts and the metadata in the blocks, kind of like we do with custom JSONs, which allows you to build stuff, but up to an extent. And so that's where Half will allow us to enable a lot of that use case. And that way you can be a general purpose blockchain and build a lot more stuff onto it. Because right now we can, and technically right now we already do that. Like we have NFTs, we have a bunch of card games, we have most of the stuff, we have DeFi, we have exchanges and stuff. We already have a lot of that. It's just that it's kind of hard to build, and so that's why there are so few actors really doing it, because you have to like hack your way through everything and figure out how with like these very simple functions, aka the custom JSONs, you can build something very big. Whereas with Half, it's going to be much simpler to build that. And yeah, as I said, like accessibility is key. I believe the reason why Ethereum is like so big right now and why a bunch of chains that tried to like kill it, like all of the Ethereum killers, but never managed to do it, is because there is such an ecosystem around Ethereum that even when like the gas fee were higher than actual gas, which is crazy to think about, people were still flocking to it, and like people were still paying like 2K to deploy a contract onto it, even though like that's crazy to think about. But it's because if you don't go on Ethereum, then you cut yourself from such a big ecosystem and potential customers / investors that people are going to it. And so the main goal for me on Hive is to get it to that accessible blockchain where anyone can join, and people. And I think that's what Brockes mentioned at one point, is like he wants Hive to be the blockchain to build on. And basically, we have most of the things we need to right now, because the fast and fearless transaction is huge as like something to market. And now we just need the ease of development onto it. And that's also what I'm trying to work on with the RCs, where it also improves the UX and the accessibility, where as a DApp developer, you can just like, if you have, let's say, a 500K Hive, you can just like delegate to a lot of users so that they don't have to worry about all of the nitty gritty. And then you can game it in a way where they buy the tokens, and like you can build like a secondary market where if you buy like the Splinterlands token or whatever, then they're going to delegate more RC to you and everything. And then you can like incentivize the action of having Hive, etc. So there's like a lot of opportunities that can be built on top of gaming accessibility.
You think that's our main hindrance thus far, both on the developer side and the user side, is accessibility?
That's a good question. Accessibility and visibility, I would say yes, because there is a lot of very exciting. Well, that plus competitiveness, because it's hard to. I would bundle that into visibility, because there is a lot of like very competitive blockchains all around. And so if you're one developer, for him to find out about Hive, it would take him some time, and maybe he will never stumble upon us. And so if we are much more visible, and also, so visible it's like a funnel. Like first step is being visible, and then being accessible enough to retain the developers and get them hooked onto our solution. That would really be the main thing.
Well, I would surmise, and you can let me know if you agree with this hypothesis, but I believe that let's say the hard fork and half go into effect the end of July, I guess is the anticipated date now. Uh, Over the next 12 months from this hard fork, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of new developers and a lot of new development done, simply because of what you said about the implementation half. And now all of a sudden, we have a way where developers of applications, games, whatever the case may be, platforms, they can come here, they can have fast and feeless transactions. And like you said, with resource credit delegation, yes, if they make an investment into some Hive, but then they can start to delegate that out to their user base, and they can work other ways around it, like you said, having their token, or having, sign in with your Twitter and operate through a proxy or whatever. And then, when you earn enough, you buy a Hive account, and you get your own RCs or whatever the case may be. They can gamify it and get creative. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of those things that for the past 4, 5, 6 years people pointed to as hindrances to Hive no longer exist.
Yeah, definitely. Especially since now, if you have like account creation tokens plus RC delegations, you can have actual free accounts. A big issue we've had with onboarding and action creation in the past few years, let's say, has been that where right now, if you want to create a free account, you have to give it some Hive power, and so that's going to be abused, try to be abused. And that's actually one of the fun story about Steampress, now XP, is back in the days, Steemit would give big delegations to promising DApps. And so we got a million Steam delegation, which at the time was like great, because then we can like do so many cool things. But the issue is, instead of giving us money, they give us they give you Steam power, and you have to fund yourself through that. And the way most apps did that is through curation. And so at that point, we ended up in a situation where instead of spending the next 6 months to a year building new cool, exciting features, we actually spent 6 months to a year building a fraud detection system and making sure that when you upvote stuff, you don't end up giving like $40 to the wrong person and everything. And in retrospect, it was good because we could get money to fuel our growth, but a lot of time and energy was spent doing that. And right now, that's kind of also the case for some stuff. You hear about like SNC has a very big account program, and they also have to spend a ton of time like making sure that the delegation they make are not abused and everything, and it sucks. Whereas in the future, you're going to be able to give a free account and then delegate RC to it. And if someone wants to try to abuse this, well, he can try, but he won't gain any money realistically, because if he tries to mass post, he'll get flagged and then just get downvoted, and that's it. So that's going to ease a lot of the developers' problems. And also I wanted to point out in terms of the issue with RC delegations, like let's say you are splinterant and you start to give out RC delegations to people. I've heard a bunch of people who are like, yeah, but won't that like decrease the need for Hive and Hive power? Because before, a lot of people would have to like buy Hive to power up. The answer to that is that the Hive still has to be bought eventually so that you can delegate it. And so the difference is that then instead of each user having to figure out how to buy Hive and power it up, it can just be the DApp who then can build a better UX and just be like, oh, buy my James token, and instead of I give you RC, and under the hood, the James token are actually Hive, and if the user wants to go deeper into it, he can like redeem the Gem tokens for actual Hive power and everything. And so that can be interesting because then a lot of people can obfuscate some of the complexities. Because right now, like you get your Hive power and it can be daunting because you're like, oh, I have Hive power, I have RC, I have voting power, I have non-voting power, I can vote for witnesses. So much stuff to take care of, where basically the user just wanted to play a bunch of cards. So that can be it's going to be very interesting on that matter.
Well, and I would think that you're right. Not only dApps, but investors are going to have more incentive to go and buy Hive, power it up, because we don't know what's going to form around these RC delegations. And, I have a feeling at some point there's going to be somebody putting stuff together. And it's like, just like with high power, you delegate some RCs to our, proxy account or whatever, we'll pay you in our native token. And so you can earn some layer 2 tokens in exchange for that. And then they can use that for whatever they want to use for it. So I think it just adds another incentive for somebody. Who cares who it is, but there's somebody going to have incentive to say, we need to get more resource credits out there. That means powering up more Hive. Somebody's got to go buy it, whether it's a dApp, whether it's 100,000 people, or whether it's block trades. I mean, somebody's got to go buy the stuff.
Yeah, a good analogy to it is kind of how people are afraid that L2s on Ethereum would reduce because like L2s, the goal is to reduce gas fees because gas fees are too expensive. And so people are afraid that since you reduce the need for gas fees, then everything is going to go bad. And then the need for the blockchain will reduce. But actually, the gas fees still need to be paid eventually. And so really if you want a good way to, good analogy, our fees are literally gas. And so the more people we get on the chain, the more RC are going to be expensive. And so the more value Hive power will get. And so I kind of expect that maybe not right after the hard fork, but maybe in a year or two when we grow really big, the RC will have a secondary market where people can come and basically you can lend your RC and earn like for a specific set amount. I basically built the RC system so that it recurs only the posting key as opposed to the active key, mostly because of that. Because I want people to be able to trust it, and most people trust their posting key. But if you give your active key to someone, it's going to go very bad very quickly. But with just the posting, it's okay. And I put a security in place so that someone cannot, even if they have your posting keys, they cannot empty you so that you cannot transact. Because then, when I was doing the initial testing, I found out that you could like delegate all of the RC, and that way you can prevent the person from undelegating. So I thought that was an interesting security flaw. But alas, it is patched.
Well, that's interesting that you went there and with the year down the road. And so let me ask, how do you feel Hive stands in terms of scalability and the ability? I mean, on your last uh, developer call, Block Trades brought up the point of down the road maybe having to build bigger blocks. He's not at that point yet. A lot of optimization's been done. There's been, shifting in different software, I guess, that you use to try to make things more streamlined and more efficient. When you look out over it at the Hive ecosystem, whether it's accounts, whether it's RCs, because like you said, it gets to the point where if RCs shoot up in cost, it's going to cost so much just to post a comment that could be fatal. How do you see things unfolding where Hive can scale to, what happens if we get 15 or 20 million people on Hive because some app goes batshit crazy? Can it handle it? And how would you say we get from where we are now to being able to handle that traffic?
So one thing to know is that the RC costs are somewhat artificial, in the sense that basically there is a handpicked value for every operation, and the posting one is, I think, the highest. But basically, and so and then there is like a bunch of variables where like the more you post, the more people post, the more the value of it will grow. But the main way, but long story short, but okay, my answer to this is basically that what this means is that if like we find a way to, as we are optimizing stuff, we may be like, actually these operations which used to be like super expensive to the blockchain, now we have changed everything in a way where it's not that expensive anymore, and so we can just drop the RC cost for it, which would be the whole thing. And also, basically, this is also where you can start to build some different things. Where let's say we are 20 million people, and you end up in a situation where you want to post, but you don't really care that much about censorship resistance and immutability. You could have an app that would allow you to, let's say, a layer 2 app, which allows you to post, and so your post is like just an ID, but then the front end would look up that ID and link it to like an IPFS or decentralized storage and load up the actual post. But on the blockchain side, basically there is like only this much of text when you wrote like the Bible on the chain. So that can be a bunch of scalability issues. I mean, scalability solutions, which, to be fair, is a very good problem to have. But we're still kind of far off from that, because like we've seen some really a lot of action already on the chain. Like when you look at the scale of screen turns, which has thousands of accounts. I don't know the exact number, but I believe they created up to 500,000 accounts or something. But yeah, it's quite huge already, and they all transact now and then. And when you see like the new season from Switzerland starts, you can see like a lot of they all try to transact at the same time on the blockchain. And when you compare our transaction per second to something like some of the big ones like Ethereum and everything, we are way ahead of them. And so, and when you see how much value is transacted on this blockchain versus on Hive, you can see that we have a long way to go in terms of everything that you can build. And so I don't really see that much of an issue in terms of scalability issues. But we are very careful about that, obviously. That's also where we are trying to, basically everything we build it in a way so that we can scale better in the future. And so that's basically why we dropped the very first implementation of the RC delegations, because it was too complex and we were afraid it would cost too much on the blockchain. Because right now, We don't have that many active accounts, but like we ran some tests where 10 million accounts were doing delegations all in and out, and we're like, that's dangerous, and so that's why we dropped this implementation. So I'm not too worried about that. And worst case, as Blocktrade's team is right now doing a lot of implementation on the peer-to-peer network and everything, which should allow us to have a lot of scaling improvements. Yeah, that would be my solution.
Yeah, it seems like in our conversations with block trades, that's the first thing he thinks about when he wakes up in the morning is thinks about scaling and goes to sleep thinking about scaling, and everywhere in between. That seems to be his forte and focus, which is great because, like you said, the last thing you want to be doing is trying to figure out how to scale when you have a need. You want to always be orders of magnitude ahead of what you expect.
Yeah, definitely. That's why Blocktrade is great to handle most of these things. And also that's something that when we'll actually push the feature list for Hardfork 26, because I don't think that have been built right now. But yeah, it may seem a bit underwhelming to a lot of you, where you will be like, oh, that's it. Because feature-wise, there isn't that much, I think.
Yeah.
But under the hood, like we optimize so many different things, so many like different flows change here and there. And also it's because a bunch of the developers were focused on half. But yeah, realistically, and I don't think we are like feature complete on the blockchain yet, but the goal is to stop updating the blockchain in terms of features unless we have to, because that's like a very intensive process between like testing, doing a hard fork and everything, and instead trying to update the other layers. So that's Hivemind, Half, etc. But yeah, right now the goal of Hardfork 26 is Hardfork 25 was a bunch of like cool features, and then a lot of security. This one is really optimizing and preparing for the future to set up the groundwork for a lot of those. But yeah, if I were to look up to something, I wouldn't be looking up to, well, I guess I would look up to Hardfork 26 for RC delegations, but I would mostly look up to when Half ships live and some of the Hivemind improvements to communities that I'm building on.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to, the time locked vaults where you can take your HBD and put it in for a year and earn a certain percentage. We need that coded. So not nudging you or hinting at anything, but if you have a few months of nothing to code, that might not be a bad thing to focus upon.
This guy's been talking about this for months now.
Like, I don't think I'll have like a bunch of month free for a while.
When I presented the idea to block trades, he says that's a great idea. Now we just got to find somebody to code it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's always tricky. But yeah, I mean, the best way to get a lot of attention to a feature request, let's say, is either to build a proposal to show like common. I guess it's a good topic. Because like writing into a post often like gets forgotten, whereas building like a proposal and making sure that it's a good way to show that all of the communities is in favor. I think we've done that only once in the past to do like community votes. But yeah, basically you build like a proposal in favor and one proposal against, and that's why people who are interested in the matter can vote into it and you can kind of like, because it's very different saying like, oh, I heard a bunch of people said they wanted this, and saying there is like 30 million of stake who's interested in getting that shipped. And then apart from that, yeah, you can talk to us directly and raise issues on the GitLab for the core developers. The issue with the proposal is that it costs money, though, at least 50 HBD, which is not that much, to be fair. But it sucks to do it just to see like 5 people are actually interested in your idea, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you're right. You put in a proposal, it gets forgotten. But when you write about it every 3 days, like I do, it tends to beat the horse. What are some of the things that you think are still needed? Why don't we ask that?
Ooh, that's a big topic. One thing I would love to do would be to change the way the proposal system works. I mean, not the proposal system at the core, but I'd love to do a proposal like a value plan. The main issue with the proposal system right now is that it's backwards in the sense where that people submit a solution and they say that's the problem, instead of being like, we have a problem. We have a problem, and we want people to submit to get a solution. Like, let's say we're like, oh, we need to overhaul our front page. Someone may come in and be like, oh, I'm going to overhaul the front page. The issue that then you have like one person saying he'll do it, and you have to vote on that. Whereas if I take the analogy of okay, I'll start again on a better analogy. Your house needs painting, and either a guy is knock on your door is like, I'll paint your house, or you're like, but no one does that. You are like, my house needs painting, and so you're going to look up all of the contractors in the area and get the best quote and compare with everything. And the issue that the proposal system right now works like this, where I come in and I'm like, I'm going to paint your house, pay me that much, yes, no. And so the solution to that is either we overhaul completely the proposal system, which is going to take months and a lot of back and forth, because the main drawback about decentralized system is that you have to debate everything. Luckily, I love debating. But then an easiest solution would be to have something similar to value plans that guilty parties currently run, where you basically do a proposal that goes into a fund, and then someone like basically hands out bounties. And it's like, this needs to be done. Who wants to participate in it? And then he can do it. And then everything is reviewed. Maybe there is like some kind of voting system where people can vote for all the proposals. It could be like a second front end. That's like a big project, by the way. If you want to do it like very well, there's like a lot of stuff to be built. But that would be very, very helpful, because it also means that you can get paid for much lower values. Because campaigning, because basically getting proposal up is really campaigning these days. I mean, not these days, since the beginning. It takes a lot of time. And so if I'm going to spend like 2 weeks to get my proposal to get funded, I'm not going to be doing a proposal for $1,000 to revamp a front page. I'm going to do it for like a year-long contract. And so a lot of the small things that could add value are not done. Something very simple like, can you do documentation for this? Or can you do documentation on what's Hive and how to power up? That could add a lot of value. But the chain doesn't have a proper way of funding that right now. But the issue with my idea is that it takes a lot of time to code, and it takes someone to manage it, kind of not full time, but to invest a significant amount of time maintaining it. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I've been saying that for literally 2 years, and I still don't have the time. So yeah, I'm just throwing that idea out here, where it would be great if someone could do it. Other things missing from Hive, I was talking to Smooth about it for a bit. It would be great to have a way to basically control how much of the money goes into, how much of the inflation goes into the social rewards versus everything else, in a way that's actionable. Like basically, it would be a proposal, and that proposal would fund the social rewards. Because when you think about it, the social rewards are basically marketing, and some people, there has been a lot of debate about if we should raise it, if we should reduce it, and everything. And so it could be interesting to have that. But once again, that's something where it would cost like a lot of time to build, because it involves changing some of the core systems. Okay, in terms of stuff that's actually actionable and stuff I'm working right now, Communities needs to be improved. There is a lot of stuff to do. Some of the stuff that I'm working on right now is new community types, where there is a bunch of communities where basically only members can post. And basically, I think there is a big market for communities where that are like paid only, where, let's say, marketing communities. You can see that on a lot of forums these days, where what comes to mind is like warrior forums and stuff like this, where it's like members only forums where you have to pay to be a member and interact with stuff. And that's something we can definitely enable on Hive. And since we have like fast feeless transactions, that's really like an easy fit.
And you have recurrent payments thanks to you.
Yes, that was the whole overarching goal of that. It's like enabling recurring payment, enabling like some of the Patreon systems. Patreon is still like hidden content is very hard to do on the blockchain. We still haven't figured out a way to do that yet. I mean, in a way that's decentralized, but that would be something that would be really great to build. So yeah, communities, stuff like this, stuff where in order to a freemium system, where in order to participate in a community, you have to set a set of beneficiaries, better community discovery features, ads would be great, as much as people hate it. The promoted feature is, I think, really good, which is kind of like at the rate of, as much as people hated bitbots, there was like an interesting use case to it, where you basically want to pay money to like fund your post to go to the top. PGD does it right now, but it's not like it's not on the whole chain. So that would be great to do a bit better, where you are a very big community, everyone goes to it every day. You can be like, if you want to participate, to like put a post pinned for like 2 days, just send that much into my fund, and I mean the fund of the community, and then your post will be put up automatically, stuff like this. So it's mostly more monetization features, and then obviously but this is like small stuff. On top of the big stuff, there is obviously everything that Half will unlock, aka tokens, smart contract, and everything.
Excellent. So Half is a smart contract application or layer.
Not really. It's that it enables it, let's say.
Oh, okay.
It's like through this technology, we'll be able to do it.
So something else has to be built connecting
Yes.
to Half to give it. Okay, I see. And Block Trades and others have talked about that. One final question, just because UST, USDD, HBD. What is your view on HBD? Do you have an opinion? You mentioned Smooth, who's obviously really brought that to the forefront with HBD stabilizer. Where do you think HBD fits into the ecosystem from your perspective? And what are some things that you want to look for over next year pertaining to that?
That's a big question.
Or do you just not think about it and it's not on your radar and you don't care?
It's not too much on my radar, because I try to focus on the very technical stuff, and that's very much a macro token economics standpoint. Although we do think a lot about token economics when we build features. And for instance, what I spoke about RC, I was like, how RC will affect the whole token economics. The issue with HBD right now is that even though we have managed to bring it to somewhat stable, it cannot compete with centralized stablecoins, and because they are like a flat $1, because they are backed by stuff directly instead of being algorithmic. I think it comes down to everything else that I mentioned, where it comes down to visibility and accessibility. Because right now HBD is not really used because there isn't a lot of apps that leverage it. But as soon as we get the ecosystem growing, then everything kind of clicks into place, where then if you have an app built on Hive, it's easy for you and you want to enable payments, you're going to use HBD. And so the bigger the ecosystem grows, the bigger the need for HBD will grow as well. And yeah, that's basically why DAI is like, I think it's the number 1 or number 2. DAI is so big. It's because it's part of it's like the de facto stablecoin for a very big ecosystem. I'm only talking about the algorithmic one. I'm not talking about Tether and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very big because it's part of a very big ecosystem. And And because DAI, since DAI is on the same chain, if you're going to accept payment in a stablecoin, you're going to accept payment on the same chain. Because if you want to accept HBD on like a Bitcoin app, that means you have to build like atomic swaps and everything. It's like a huge amount of pain. And so yeah, I believe like HBD still has his time to come, and it's mostly linked to the success of Hive and how many apps we can get into it, and in order to make this like the de facto dollar for our growing ecosystem.
Any comments, John, from the Peanut Gallery? Anything on Vim or wherever where people have questions?
No, good audience though at Vim. Vim is always always has a lot of people compared to the other platforms. See, people are embracing the Hive stuff. Task. It's a good thing. I'm curious. I mean, this is again, I'm not as up to date as Task is with some of this. You mentioned this, and I've seen it talked about a few times. What is the argument, let's say, between like the social rewards thing, using the inflation for or not using it for? Like, what are the two sides of the coin here? How would you see it?
So the argument for is that a bunch of people are saying that people are here for the rewards. I would say that's not entirely true, but there is some truth to it. And so let's say we cut that, like the chain would die. I mean, would become a ghost town, which would be bad, I would say. A bunch of way people view it is basically a marketing budget, and so there are some growing voices that are like, we are spending so much money onto that, which is it's like multiple millions per year. I don't know the exact value, but it's like very big. And a bunch of people are saying, okay, sure, we are spending that much money on posts, but all of these posts, most people basically they get the post reward, and they go as fast as they can, they power it down, and they go sell it. And so not only are we using marketing rewards, we are basically bringing up inflation that almost automatically translates into selling pressure. And so do we want to do that? Like, is the benefit that big of a deal when we could be instead like spending millions on actual marketing? I mean, actual is a quote unquote again. Like on marketing, where like we could be on every billboard of like Silicon Valley and everything. I mean, no, that's a very big overstatement. But like we could like fund a very, very big marketing campaign through those millions instead of just post. And so that's kind of the back and forth, because basically all of those posts are bringing some visibility, because when you Google some specific posts, sometimes PigD or pops up, and PigD and also Hive.blog have risen up quite high on the Alexa ranks, which is like the Google rank for like the higher you are, the more you are known on the web, let's say. And so a bunch of people are pretty much asking, is it worth it? It's very hard to quantify, so that's why there is debates. And so there are some people who are like, maybe we should instead fund a marketing initiative. The issue with that is that marketing, saying we should throw money at marketing is easy, but it's very hard to actually do marketing and build and spend money wisely. And that also requires someone to manage it, and someone that's very good and everything. And so it's not as easy as like cutting the funds and hoping that throwing money elsewhere will work better. So those are kind of the two voices I've been hearing for a while. And then there is also the fact that people are also saying that a bunch of the funds are going to Venezuelans and Ukrainians and people like this who are like literally using it to live, and some other people are saying like we are not a charity, and basically another interesting point that has been raised has been that posting rewards should basically stay powered up and not be able to power down those rewards. As a way where like you post to earn a stake, but that stake you get to use it, and you earn money through creation rewards, not through posting rewards. And so you post, you earn some high power, which when it grows big enough, you basically earn good creation rewards with which then you can sell, which is like a middle ground that I've heard about, but I haven't had much debate about it with people. So I don't know what everyone thinks about it. So yeah, to be fair, all of those are like very big ideas. It's not really something that's going to be implemented anytime soon. It's like not even on the radar. It's like just floating ideas and stuff we are thinking about.
Boom Me asked, should the Hive fund be reduced now that it's grown quite big? Because he said the latest graph by Dow's shows that the HDF has a large percentage of the total Hive.
That's normal. Thanks to another of my developments. When Hive launched, the Steemit Inc. had a very large portion of the the total Hive, thanks to the Ninja Mine. So Ninja Mine is when you basically you allocate a specific percent of the total amount that's going to be mined to go onto you, so that you can fund developments. And the main point of contention between Justin Sun and us was that Justin Sun was like, I bought Steemit Inc., so that money is mine. We were like, no, this fund was always meant for developments. So it's not yours, it's for the community. And so when we forked onto Hive, we all agreed that the best way this money should go is decentralized Hive fund. I mean, the Hive decentralized, what's the name? The full name? I forgot. Hive decentralized fund. We thought it should go to the fund because the fund is funding development, be it actual development or marketing or stuff where outreach or funding like HiveFest, which I believe is a very applicable proposal. Vote for it, by the way, if you haven't. I believe it is funded now, but more votes can always help. And so yeah, and I built a piece of code that basically slowly converts the Hive onto HBD as time goes. So that percentage is going to drop, and the HBD amount is going to raise as time goes. But yeah, it's normal, but it's not an issue because that fund basically cannot be accessed by anyone. And anyone who wants to withdraw funds from it has to go through all of the approval from the community. And so, yeah, it's safe.
And I believe there's only a certain percentage issued each day of the total. So
1%, yeah.
The larger it grows, potentially, the more we can fund in the future.
Yeah. To be fair, right now we have a lot of leeway already. Let's see.
It's like 60 million Hive or $60 million in there or something.
Yeah, the daily budget is like 170K almost. So there is a lot of leeway, so yeah, I would say if you want to, if you have good ideas and you think you can muster the support, do make a proposal for it.
Well, I think what it is all the proposals that get approved get funded, and then the leftover goes to HBD stabilizer, and that's what that uses to trade back and forth on the internal market, which actually ends up being a moneymaker for the DAO.
Yeah, that's a very, very good thing that Smooth did back in the day. Because, at that point, it was mostly investors who were making money. And I think there was like a net benefit of multiple millions through that. Don't quote me on the number because I'm not 100% sure of what it was, but it was more than $1 million, which was like a huge gain. Like at one point, when HBD was way high up and trading at like $2, we could make a ton of money through it, which can go and fund a lot of other things. Like I don't think we even spend more than $1 million over all of the proposals in a year. Let's see. Oh, actually, maybe we do, but not by much. Like our current budget is probably around $2 million. But that's mostly because BlockTrade is absorbing the bulk of the cost. Because realistically, if we were to really think about the cost of maintaining the blockchain, it's way, way higher right now. It's just that BlockTrade hasn't put up a proposal for his developments. I don't know his why, but I believe it's because he has a very large stake. And so if I were to venture a guess, it's because like if you have a very large stake, gaining 10% on the high, if Hive takes 10%, your net worth is going to grow so much that it's more worth it for you to not like bother with everything else.
Block trades probably will do very well with $10 or $15 Hive. They'll be okay.
I think he'll rough it for a bit, right?
Yeah, probably some tough times ahead. Definitely. Yeah. Probably wait for $100 a Hive, definitely.
I wanted to get your view on this because, and it goes back to HBD a little bit. And you talk about the algorithmic stable coins and the backing and stuff like this. And I look at this two ways. First off, you have building the value on HBD. And that's through utility, through, like you said, payment systems, apps accepting it. It's through investing and funding of different projects using HBD. It's through derivatives. It's through collateralization. All these things that a stable coin or a currency can be used for. But and we see a lot of this with UST and all these other things that, oh, we're backing it by essentially a reserve. And UST was backed by Luna, kind of like we are with Hive. You have Circle, of course, backing it with USD or USD equivalent assets. Using that mindset, to me, when we say, okay, Hive or HBD is backed by $1 worth of Hive. So not only do we have the task of putting value on HBD through this utility, I think one of the areas that UST fell is nobody gave a shit about Luna. I mean, Luna really didn't have much use case. And I think one of the focuses has to be, how do we put more value on Hive, the token, so that there is incentive for people to use, to hold it. There is incentive for people to go out and acquire it. And like you said, we covered earlier with the resource delegation, which is another way of saying Hive power. Now, or soon when we get to the hard fork, applications theoretically will have incentive for acquiring Hive power or investors. But I've also thought about things like we have the internal exchange. And what about a small fee on the internal exchange for exchanging Hive to HBD or vice versa? And then you have that money funneled into people powering up Hive. So now all of a sudden we get like 2.8 or 2.9% annually for the adjustment for inflation. But all of a sudden, if you think of different ways and get that to 10%, now all of a sudden people say, wait a second, I can go out and buy this Hive, power it up, and get a 10% ROI even before I start with my curation and stuff like that. That would be all of a sudden an incentive to people to acquire Hive, hold it, and now your backing agent for HBD, your reserve, has more value. What are your thoughts on some of that as a theory, and then maybe as some specific ideas?
So there was a bunch of ideas, around it. I think it was Zeke Almidan who brought up a bunch of ideas in order to raise the value of HBD. That totally could be doable. That would be interesting. Although it kind of, my main view on the difference is like Luna and Terra. The issue is that all the value was on the stablecoin and none was on Luna. Whereas here, since HBD is backed by Hive, as long as Hive does very well, HBD will be fine. And I believe right now there is much more value on Hive than there is on HBD. And so I don't think we need to bring value into HBD really, because HBD needs to be used really, and that's about it. We just want to, because the more people use it, the more volumes there will be, and so the more resistant it is to price changes. Because if there is a ton of value, if you sell like 10, 100K, then the price won't move that much because there is like millions upon millions of volume. And that's why the HBD value is kind of fluctuating these days, is because there is not enough volume to really get everything stable. And that's why the HBD stabilizer is so useful, is because it adds volume. It kind of acts as a market maker in a sense. And yeah, we have a bunch of ideas about how to either burn Hive or create incentives to funnel money back to people holding Hives. One of the ideas was to offer instant power downs where you can power down instantly, but you lose 10 or 15%. It has to be that high because otherwise people can power down instantly and then vote a bunch, and then power down instantly and then vote a bunch again. So the cost has to be higher than what you would earn by voting yourself, or creation rewards. But yeah, there is a bunch of stuff that we are thinking about implementing like this. It's just that it can be complicated, and we always weigh like the risk versus the reward. And in that case, the risk is quite high for a reward that's like it's let's say it's like theorized, but we don't know if it's gonna actually be that used. But yeah, overall, my answer to this would be I believe all of the effort can be put into adding value to Hive, and that will trickle down into HBD. Because if there is a bunch of app using Hive, that means HBD will see use here, and that means people will want to buy Hive to gain RC to do stuff, or they will buy like the RC token, which in result is like more Hive power being powered up here and there. And then there is like a bunch of apps that can do some burning. More account being created means more like Hive being burned. Splinterlands famously burned a ton of Hive to create a lot of accounts. So there's like a bunch of solutions to like. I think most of the systems are already here. We just need to hit that scale, let's say.
All problems are solved with more users. Right?
I mean, more users bring a lot of problems, though. But
yeah, true. Yeah, it's true.
But new problems.
Yeah, they're higher scale problems. It's like they say, it's nice to show up for your problems if you're rich in a Ferrari as opposed to a used Pinto. You just show up to your problems in style. So I don't have any more questions, John. Do you have anything that's
no, dude? That was great, man. I mean, and dude, I got to give you a little bit of kudos here because that was techie that I understood. So I actually understood everything you said this entire show. So that's good. We need more of that for the idiots in the room like me who get it now. So yeah, no, it was great, man. Appreciate.
I do when I do the core developer meeting, it's very, very techy, and I know no one can follow. So when I do some more broad public stuff, I try to be very open.
Yeah, because most of us can't right center a picture in Markdown, so we're still trying to learn that.
I'm still trying to spell HTML. Okay, that's the problem I have. So. Yeah. No, dude, it was great, man. Obviously appreciate all the work, and I think the big awesome part of this is what you kind of led off with about how you have a proposal that's out there, and I do recommend obviously everyone continues to support it. You are being paid by the community to build this for the community. And I think that's one of these amazing parts of Hive that when you really like go, oh my gosh, it attracts someone like you that can build here and build it for the community. And that's what's so powerful about this blockchain and the DHF. So I think it's fantastic. But then again, I'm very biased.
And another thing that, John, just building on your idea there or expanding upon it, I don't know if a lot of people listening are aware of this, and I know you were doing them 2 weeks, and I believe the last call you said you're going to now do them once a month. But anybody can go on YouTube on the live streams when they hold the developer calls, and there's Gandalf, there's Howu, there's Block Trades, there's Arcanes, there's a bunch of people. I am Watsy are on there now once a month, and whatever they're discussing and whatever they're doing, all of us can listen in and get on the live chat and drop questions or whatever.
Yeah, it's every first Monday of the month at 5 UTC now. Although, disclaimer, we don't always stream it because I don't know how to do it, and and so Crimson Clad does it for me, but sometimes she's not available because she has a life, surprising, and so. Yes, sometimes it's not streamed, but it's always the recording is always uploaded on YouTube afterwards. And I always make a post about it, so you can, if you just want to follow it, you can just follow me on Hive and listen to the recordings afterwards.
Perfect.
Yeah, and for those, of course, block trades every 7 to usually 12 days. He puts up a post about what his team's doing. So there are ways that we can stay up with what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Dude,
well, we thank you for all you do, Howell. We're glad you're part of the team and
thank you for the support.
taking the care of the base layer, because if it was left to me or John, we might break something.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, appreciate it, man. Appreciate all the work you do, and thank you. And we're looking forward to the next hard fork and all the changes. I know you, like you said, they're not necessarily sexy changes, but it's changes that help this thing grow, and I'm excited for it. So thanks again. And
I mean, it's sexy for me.
well, that's as long as the developers think it's sexy, it's fine with me. You know, it's fine with me. So appreciate it, man. Thanks.
We'll have to have you on again. Maybe after the hard fork, if nothing's broken, we can get you back on.
Yeah, definitely.
See what you're doing for the next one, and when we can start looking forward to that one.
Yeah. So Task gets his bond savings things.
I want my high savings bonds. Hey, I'm not the only one. Dan and Starkers want it too.
Love it. Cool. All right, man. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. See you all.